The massive Council exploration vessel drifted through the darkness of deep space, its sensors sweeping the endless void for anything of interest. On the bridge, Admiral Reed stood with his forearms clasped behind his back, his scaled skin reflecting the soft blue light of the holographic displays. "Admiral, we're picking up something unusual," announced the sensor operator. "Large metallic object, approximately 2 kilometers in length. Appears to be artificial." Reed moved closer to the main view screen. His interest piqued. "Show me." The screen flickered to life, revealing a dark shape floating against the backdrop of stars. As the ship's external lights illuminated the object, gasps echoed across the bridge. It was unmistakably a warship, but unlike anything the Council fleet had encountered before. "Scanning for identification markers," reported the sensor operator. After a moment, text appeared on the screen. "UEAs THUNDRCA. Helid." "UEAs," Reed's second-in-command asked. "That's human, isn't it?" "Indeed," Reed replied, his mandibles clicking in amusement. "A relic from their early space age, no doubt. Look at that primitive design. They actually used physical armor plating instead of energy shields." The bridge crew shared knowing looks and quiet chuckles. Humans were the newest members of the Galactic Council, barely 2 decades into their membership. While they had met the minimum requirements for faster-than-light travel and colonial expansion, most Council species viewed their technology as charmingly obsolete. "Should we notify their representative?" the communications officer asked. "Might as well," Reed said, "though I doubt they'll be interested in this antique. Probably lost during one of their early attempts at space travel." Within an hour, the human representative arrived in a small shuttle. Captain James Miller was the only human assigned to this exploration fleet, and Reed had always found him to be unusually quiet and reserved for his species. Miller stood before the view screen, his face carefully neutral as he studied the ancient warship. "Interesting find. Admiral, mind if I access the sensor data?" "Help yourself." Reed gestured to a nearby console. "Though I must say, Captain, your people's early shipbuilding attempts were rather basic. No quantum drives, no plasma weapons, not even basic shield generators that we can detect." Miller's fingers moved across the console, his eyes scanning the data. "We all start somewhere. Admiral, the Thunderchild-class ships were from our first wave of deep space vessels." "First wave?" Reed laughed. "You mean you actually sent people into space in these boxes?" "They served their purpose," Miller replied diplomatically. "Would it be possible to get a closer look?" Reed waved a hand dismissively. "By all means. We'll send out some engineering drones to ensure it's stable. Might make an interesting addition to the Council's Museum of Primitive Technologies." As the drones approached the massive ship, Miller watched intently. The external lights revealed more details: heavy armor plating, multiple weapon ports, and massive engine nacelles that spoke of nuclear fusion drives, technology that most Council species had abandoned centuries ago in favor of more advanced propulsion systems. "Look at those reactor housing units," one of the engineers commented. "They actually contained their fusion reactions in physical chambers. How did they survive their own radiation?" Miller remained silent, his eyes fixed on the ship. Only someone watching very closely would have noticed his slight smile when the drones reported no radiation leakage despite the ship's apparent age. "Well, Captain," Reed said, "shall we claim this relic in the name of scientific research? We can have it towed to the nearest Council facility for proper study." "Actually, Admiral," Miller replied, his voice carefully measured, "according to Council law, any human military vessel remains the property of Earth Command, regardless of its age or condition. I'll need to contact my superiors about proper salvage procedures." Reed's mandibles clicked in amusement. "Military vessel. Captain, this is clearly a museum piece, but very well, follow your protocols if you must. We'll remain here until you receive a response." As Miller left the bridge to send his message, he allowed himself another small smile. If only they knew what they were actually looking at. But they would find out soon enough, sooner than any of them expected. The Thunderchild floated silently in space, its dark hull revealing nothing of the secrets that lay dormant within. Like humanity itself, there was far more to this primitive vessel than met the eye. The Council engineering team boarded the Thunderchild with all the excitement of children opening presents. Their scanning devices hummed and blinked as they moved through the dark corridors of the massive ship. Emergency lights cast a dim red glow, powered by what remained of the vessel's backup systems. "Look at these walls," said Lead Engineer Davis, a tall alien with translucent skin through which his thoughts literally glowed. Simple steel alloys. They didn't even use quantum-bonded materials. He ran a finger along the surface, shaking his head in amusement. Behind him, Captain Miller walked quietly, watching as the team made their assessments. He had insisted on accompanying them, citing safety protocols. In reality, he needed to ensure they didn't stumble upon anything they weren't supposed to find. "The bridge design is so primitive," another engineer commented, stepping onto the command deck. "Physical controls everywhere. They actually had to touch things to make them work." Miller suppressed a smile. The aliens were seeing exactly what they expected to see, an outdated human warship. They didn't notice how the simple steel walls absorbed their scanning beams in ways that normal metal shouldn't, or how certain doors remained mysteriously locked despite the ship's powered-down state. "Captain," Davis called out, "these weapon mounts, they're designed for nuclear missiles. Your people actually used atomic weapons in space." His voice carried the tone of someone discussing cave paintings with their creator. "Like I said, it was an early design," Miller replied calmly. He watched as they completely ignored the subtle patterns in the hull plating that, to trained human eyes, clearly indicated the presence of phase shift technology. The team made their way to the engine room, their laughter echoing through the empty corridors. The massive fusion reactor sat silent, its heavy shielding exactly what they expected from primitive nuclear technology. "Fascinating," Davis said, scanning the reactor. They contained plasma with magnetic fields instead of quantum models. "It's amazing they didn't all die from radiation exposure." Miller stepped forward. "Mind if I check something? Just want to ensure the containment systems are still functioning." "Of course, Captain. Though I doubt there's any active danger from such an old system." Miller placed his hand on a seemingly ordinary panel. Hidden sensors read his DNA and body temperature. Deep within the ship, something stirred ever so slightly. "All safe," he announced, withdrawing his hand. The ship's AI had received its first wake-up signal, but the aliens remained oblivious. The assessment continued for hours. The engineering team documented everything, occasionally making jokes about the museum piece they'd found. They never noticed how their more advanced scanning equipment sometimes gave contradictory readings, or how certain sections of the ship seemed to absorb their scans entirely. "Well, I think we've seen enough," Davis finally announced. "A fascinating example of early human space technology. We'll recommend it for preservation in the Council's historical archive." As they walked back to their shuttle, Davis turned to Miller. "You know, Captain, you shouldn't feel embarrassed about this. Every species starts somewhere. Look how far humans have come since then." "Indeed," Miller replied. "We've learned a lot from the Council." Once the engineering team departed, Miller remained aboard the Thunderchild. He made his way to a specific panel in a maintenance corridor. This time, when he placed his hand on the surface, he also whispered a series of words, an old Earth military code. A hidden screen flickered to life, displaying text that would have shocked the alien engineers. THUNDERCHIL. Die Systems Share. Quantum Core. Standby. Phase Shift Armor. Dormant. AI Core. Old Thunder. Hibernation Mode. Antimatter Weapons. Sealed. All systems nominal. Miller sent a quick encrypted message to Earth Command. Assessment complete. They suspect nothing, awaiting further orders. The response came almost immediately. Maintain current status. Continue monitoring. As Miller left the ship, the aliens were already discussing where to display this interesting piece of human history. None of them noticed the faint pulse of energy that briefly rippled through the ship's hull, like a sleeping giant taking a single quiet breath. The Thunderchild waited patiently in the darkness. Its time would come soon enough. The alarm started at midnight, ship time. Admiral Reed was jolted from his rest period by flashing red lights and blaring sirens. He rushed to the bridge, his 4 arms quickly fastening his uniform. "Report," he barked, taking his command position. Multiple vessels just dropped out of faster-than-light travel. His sensor officer responded, voice shaking. Energy signatures match. Drachnid warships. Reed's scales paled. The Drachnids were the terror of the galaxy's outer rim, pirates and raiders who struck without warning and showed no mercy. Their ships used stolen technology from a dozen species, making them unpredictable and deadly. "How many?" Reed demanded. 27 vessels. Admiral. Heavy cruiser class and above. The bridge fell silent. Their exploration fleet had only 12 ships, and none were built for serious combat. The Council hadn't fought a real war in over 200 years. "Send out a distress signal," Reed ordered, "and get me Captain Miller." Miller arrived moments later, looking surprisingly calm for someone about to face death or capture. "Admiral." "Captain, your species has fought wars more recently than ours. Any suggestions?" Before Miller could answer, the first Drachnid shots streaked across space. 2 Council ships exploded instantly, their advanced shields useless against weapons they weren't designed to stop. "Begin evacuation procedures," Reed commanded. "All civilian personnel to escape pods. We'll try to buy them time." The next few minutes were chaos. The Council fleet attempted to form a defensive pattern, but their lack of combat experience showed. The Drachnids picked them apart with brutal efficiency. "Admiral," Miller said quietly, "the Thunderchild. It's in their path." Reed laughed bitterly. "Captain, I appreciate your concern for historical artifacts, but we have bigger problems right now." Another Council ship exploded. The bridge rocked as their own vessel took a glancing hit. "Sir," Miller insisted, "let me take a shuttle to the Thunderchild. I might be able to use its systems to help with the evacuation." That ancient heap of metal. Reed started to object, then waved a hand dismissively. "Fine. If you want to spend your last minutes in a museum piece, be my guest." Miller was already moving. He took the fastest shuttle available, piloting it skillfully through the chaos of battle toward the dark shape of the Thunderchild. Behind him, the Council fleet was being decimated. Reed's ship launched escape pods in all directions as its engines failed. The Drachnids ignored the pods for now, focusing on destroying the larger vessels first. They'd collect their prisoners afterward. Miller docked with the Thunderchild just as another Council ship exploded. Inside the old warship, he ran through the corridors, no longer bothering to hide his knowledge of the layout. He reached the bridge in record time. The emergency lights still cast their dim red glow, but this time Miller went straight to the captain's chair. His hands flew across the controls, entering complex codes that would have shocked the alien engineers who dismissed this ship as primitive. "Wake up, old Thunder," he whispered. "We need you." For a moment, nothing happened. Then the bridge came alive. Displays lit up, showing the battle outside. The ship's AI responded in a deep, calm voice. "Activation QOD accepted. Combat situation detected. All systems preparing for emergency response." Through the view screen, Miller watched another Council ship fall. The Drachnids were moving closer, their weapons ready to destroy anything in their path. They'd noticed the Thunderchild powering up any second now. "Time to show them what a real warship can do," Miller said, settling into the captain's chair as systems came online around him. Beneath his feet, He felt the first vibrations of the ship's true power plant awakening. Not the simple fusion reactor the aliens had mocked, but something far more advanced. The Drachnids had just noticed the energy spike from the supposedly dead vessel. Their lead ship was turning, weapons charging. They were about to learn that humanity's primitive technology wasn't quite what it seemed. The Thunderchild's bridge hummed with increasing power as systems came online one after another. Miller's fingers danced across the control panels, entering commands with practiced ease. "Old Thunder, give me a status report," he ordered. The AI's deep voice resonated through the bridge. "Coori Suestiamans at 60% and rising. Weapons and defensive systems, INITIALISing. G. Full combat TAP ability in 2 minutes." On the main screen, Miller watched as a Drachnid cruiser turned toward them, its weapons charging. They had noticed the power surge from the supposedly dead ship. "Sir," Old Thunder announced, "incoming transmission from the Drachnid vessel. Put them through." A harsh voice filled the bridge. "Unknown vessel, power down immediately or be destroyed. You have 10 seconds to comply." Miller smiled. "Old Thunder, begin transformation sequence." Initiating fuel combat configuration. The Thunderchild shuddered. Across its hull, the seemingly simple metal plates began to shift and move. The primitive armor that the Council engineers had mocked split apart, revealing layers of advanced technology beneath. Weapon ports appeared where there had been none. The hull itself seemed to ripple as quantum phase generators activated. Through the view screen, Miller could see the Drachnid ship hesitate. This wasn't the dead vessel they'd expected to find. "Old Thunder, what's the status of the Council fleet?" 4 KUNCL vessels remain operational. Multiple escape pods DTKTED. TRAKNID forces maintaining ATTCK Patir and Delta. Miller keyed the ship-wide communication system. "This is Captain James Miller to all Council survivors. The Thunderchild is operational. Maintain your current positions." On the Council flagship's damaged bridge, Admiral Reed stared in disbelief at his sensors. The museum piece was transforming before his eyes. Energy readings were off the charts. "Transformation sequence complete," Old Thunder reported. "All Soestiums ONLINE. QUANTUM shields at fuel power. Weapons armed." The Drachnid cruiser fired first. A barrage of plasma torpedoes that would have vaporized any Council vessel. They struck the Thunderchild's shields and dissipated harmlessly. "Return fire," Miller commanded. "Show them what primitive technology can do." The Thunderchild's response was devastating. Panels along its hull slid open, revealing rows of weapon ports that the alien engineers had completely missed. Beams of concentrated energy lashed out, slicing through the Drachnid ship shields like they weren't there. "Confirmed hit. Enemy vessels shield generators disability." More Drachnid ships were turning now, breaking off their attack on the Council fleet to face this new threat. Their sensors must have been going crazy, trying to understand how a supposedly ancient human warship was suddenly wielding technology that surpassed their own. "Full power to forward shields," Miller ordered. "Begin evasive pattern Echo 7. The Thunderchild moved with impossible grace for its size. The basic fusion drives the aliens had laughed at were just a cover. The ship's true propulsion system let it dance through space like a fighter craft. "Multiple enemy ships locked on," Old Thunder reported. "They are coordinating their attack." Miller pressed a button on his chair. "Deploy countermeasures." Dozens of small objects launched from the Thunderchild's hull. The Drachnids ignored them, focusing their fire on the larger target. That was their mistake. The objects suddenly activated, creating a web of quantum disruption fields that scattered their weapons' fire harmlessly into space. "Sir," Old Thunder announced, receiving transmissions from Council escape pods. "They are requesting immediate assistance." Miller nodded. Show them what a real Earth warship can do, Old Thunder. All weapons free. Protect those pods. The Thunderchild's hull gleamed with power as it moved to engage the enemy fleet. The primitive vessel that had been dismissed as a relic was about to teach both the Drachnids and the Council a lesson about underestimating human technology. And this was just the beginning. Admiral Reed couldn't believe his eyes. On his damaged flagship's view screen, the primitive human vessel was doing the impossible. The Thunderchild moved through space with deadly grace, its weapons cutting through Drachnid shields that had effortlessly destroyed Council ships moments before. "Get me readings on that ship," Reed demanded. "How is this possible?" His sensor officer's hands shook as he worked the controls. "Sir, these readings, they don't make sense. The hull is generating energy patterns we've never seen before. The weapon signatures don't match anything in our database." Another blast from the Thunderchild struck a Drachnid cruiser. Instead of the simple nuclear weapons the Council had expected from such an outdated vessel, the beam seemed to bend space itself around the target. The Drachnid ship's hull crumpled like paper. On the Thunderchild's bridge, Miller watched the battle unfold with calm satisfaction. "Old Thunder, status report. QUA and TUM shield is holding at 97%. Weapon systems operating ATV fueled CA pace. Enemy fleet attempting to regroup." The Drachnids were indeed regrouping, but their formation showed signs of confusion. They had expected an easy fight against the Council's exploration fleet. Instead, they faced a warship that seemed to ignore the laws of physics as they understood them. "Sir," Old Thunder reported, intercepting Drachnid communications. "They are attempting to analyze our defensive capabilities." Miller smiled. "Let's give them something else to think about. Deploy the phase shift drones." Across the battlefield, Council survivors watched in awe as small objects launched from the Thunderchild's hull. The drones looked simple at first, until they began to multiply. Each drone split into 4 copies of itself, then those copies split again. Within seconds, hundreds of identical devices surrounded the human warship. "Impossible," the Drachnid commander's voice crackled over the general communication channel. "Their technology can't be this advanced. They're humans." The drones activated in perfect synchronization. Space itself seemed to ripple as they generated a complex web of quantum fields. 3 Drachnid ships found themselves suddenly unable to move, caught in a trap they couldn't understand. On the Council flagship, Engineer Davis stared at his readings in shock. "Admiral, that ship, the systems we saw during our inspection, they weren't real. They were decoys." "What do you mean?" Reed demanded. "The fusion reactor, the basic armor, all of it, they were covering up something far more advanced. We didn't just misunderstand their technology, sir. They deliberately let us underestimate them." A massive explosion lit up space as the Thunderchild's main weapon struck again. A Drachnid battlecruiser, pride of their raiding fleet, split cleanly in 2. The energy readings from the blast made the Council's most advanced sensors overload and shut down. "This is Captain Miller to all Council vessels." Miller's calm voice came over the comm system. "Please maintain your positions behind the Thunderchild. We'll handle the Drachnid fleet." Reed's mandibles clicked in disbelief. The human wasn't just fighting. He was giving them orders. And based on what they were seeing, they had no choice but to obey. "Old Thunder," Miller commanded, "show them the full capabilities of our point defense systems." The Thunderchild's hull rippled again. Thousands of tiny points of light emerged, creating a sphere of energy around the ship. When the next wave of Drachnid weapons fire approached, the points of light intercepted every shot with perfect precision. "By the first stars," Davis whispered, watching his sensor readings. "Their targeting systems, the energy manipulation. This ship is centuries ahead of anything the Council has." The remaining Drachnid ships began to break formation. Their confident attack had turned into a desperate fight for survival against an enemy they couldn't comprehend. The primitive vessel they had ignored was systematically taking apart their fleet. Miller stood from his captain's chair, watching the enemy's confusion with satisfaction. "Old Thunder, prepare to demonstrate our main gun. Let's show them exactly why humanity has kept ships like you operational all these years." The Thunderchild's hull began to glow with building energy. The real show was about to begin. Space itself seemed to hold its breath as the Thunderchild's main gun powered up. Energy coursed through the ship's hull, making it glow like a newborn star. The remaining Drachnid ships started to back away, their sensors warning them of power readings beyond anything they'd encountered before. "Old Thunder," Miller commanded, "target their flagship. HFY Stories locked. Main cannon charged to 100%, awaiting firing command." The Drachnid fleet's commander wasn't waiting to see what would happen. "All ships, emergency retreat," jumped to light speed immediately. But before they could escape, the Thunderchild fired. A beam of pure white energy erupted from the ship's bow. It wasn't the crude nuclear weapons the aliens had expected, nor even the advanced energy weapons they'd seen earlier. This was something else entirely. Where the beam passed, space itself distorted, creating a tunnel of bent light that connected the Thunderchild to its target. The Drachnid flagship didn't explode. It simply ceased to exist, along with two smaller ships that were caught in the beam's path. "By all the ancient gods," Admiral Reed whispered from his bridge. "What kind of weapon was that?" Miller's voice came over the comm system, as calm as ever. "That, Admiral, was a quantum annihilation cannon. It doesn't destroy ships. It removes them from our reality entirely." The remaining Drachnid ships broke formation in panic. Their disciplined attack dissolved into chaos as each captain tried to save their own vessel. But the Thunderchild wasn't finished. "Old Thunder, deploy the Hunter-Seekers," Miller ordered. Small, dart-like objects shot out from the Thunderchild's hull. They moved faster than any ship, passing straight through shields as if they weren't there. Each one attached itself to a Drachnid vessel. "What are those devices?" Engineer Davis asked, watching his sensors in fascination. His answer came moments later as the devices activated. Each Drachnid ship's engines suddenly shut down, their weapons went dark, and their shields collapsed. "Quantum lock devices," Miller explained over the general channel. "They temporarily phase your technology out of sync with our universe. Don't worry, the effect only lasts about an hour, long enough for proper surrender negotiations." The remaining Drachnid ships floated helplessly in space. Their mighty raid had been stopped cold by a single vessel, one they had dismissed as an ancient relic just hours before. "My fleet neutralized," Old Thunder reported. "No remaining active 3ETs DT. Miller nodded with satisfaction. "Begin rescue operations for the Council escape pods. And Old Thunder, you can power down the light show now." The Thunderchild's glowing hull slowly dimmed, though its weapons remained ready. Around it, Council ships began to approach cautiously, their crews still trying to process what they had witnessed. Admiral Reed's voice came over the comm. "Captain Miller, I believe we owe you and your ship an apology." "No apology needed, Admiral," Miller replied. "Though I hope this helps explain why humanity keeps our outdated warships operational." A Drachnid transmission cut through the channel. "This is impossible. Humans are primitives. Your technology is centuries behind the Council's." Miller couldn't help but laugh. "You really think we showed the Council everything when we joined? The Thunderchild isn't a relic. It's one of our most advanced warships, disguised to look primitive. There are dozens more just like her, hidden throughout human space." The silence that followed was deafening. Council ships and captured Drachnid vessels alike floated in the void, their crews contemplating the implications. Humanity hadn't just hidden their true capabilities, they had masterfully deceived every advanced species in the galaxy. "Old Thunder," Miller said quietly, "send the battle data to Earth Command. I think our demonstration was quite effective." Eknodoligid, Captain. Me Isaiji sent. Shall I prepare the ship for RCOVRI operations? Yes, Miller replied, looking out at the stunned alien vessels surrounding them. I think everyone here has learned an important lesson about judging books by their covers. The Thunderchild moved gracefully through space, its primitive hull now recognized for what it truly was, a masterpiece of deception and technological advancement that had fooled an entire galaxy. 3 days after the battle, the Council's emergency response fleet finally arrived. They found a scene very different from what they expected. Instead of wreckage and survivors, they discovered a fully functioning Council fleet, captured Drachnid ships, and the infamous ancient human warship that had changed everything. In the Council flagship's main conference room, Admiral Reeb stood before the assembled Emergency Response Committee. His scales had regained their normal color, but his forehands still shook slightly as he gave his report. The human vessel Thunderchild, he said, is not what we thought it was. What we believed to be an obsolete warship was, in fact, one of the most advanced vessels I have ever encountered. Captain Miller sat quietly at the back of the room, watching the proceedings with the same calm expression he always wore. Next to him, Engineer Davis couldn't stop staring at the datapad containing the Thunderchild's true specifications. The ship's hull alone, Davis explained to the committee, contains technology we thought impossible. They didn't just hide their advances, they made us think we were superior. Every primitive system we found was a carefully crafted deception. The committee members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. One of them, a tall being with crystalline features, addressed Miller directly. Captain, why would humanity go to such lengths to appear less advanced than they are? Miller stood up slowly. Think about it. When we joined the Council, we were seen as the new primitive species. Nobody worried about us. Nobody saw us as a threat. He smiled. That made it much easier to prepare for days like this. Prepare? Reed asked. You mean there are more ships like the Thunderchild? Many more, Miller confirmed, hidden throughout human space, disguised as relics or trading vessels, each one capable of facing an entire fleet. We call them the Silent Guard. The conference room erupted in shocked whispers. The implications were staggering. Humanity hadn't just fooled them about one ship. They had created an entire hidden fleet of super-advanced warships. But why reveal this now? Another committee member asked. Because the Drachnids needed to be stopped, Miller explained. And because it was time for the Council to understand something important. Humanity joined the galactic community not because we needed to, but because we chose to. On the main screen, footage from the battle played. The Thunderchild's transformation from apparent relic to advanced warship was even more impressive in replay. The committee watched in silence as the ship's quantum annihilation cannon erased 3 Drachnid vessels from existence. The Drachnid threat has been neutralized, Miller continued. Their remaining ships have been captured, and their bases will be dealt with. But more importantly, we hope this incident has built trust, not damaged it. Admiral Reed stepped forward. Trust. You deceived the entire Council. No, Miller corrected gently. We protected the Council. Those ships aren't meant for conquest. They're guardians, positioned throughout the galaxy, ready to respond when peaceful species face threats they can't handle alone. The room fell silent as understanding dawned. Humanity hadn't hidden their true power out of fear or malice, but as part of a larger strategy to protect galactic peace. From now on, Miller said, the Thunderchild and ships like her will operate openly. The Council now knows humanity's true capabilities, and we hope this leads to deeper cooperation, not fear. As if to emphasize his point, the Thunderchild could be seen through the conference room's window, its hull now proudly displaying its advanced technology. The ship that had been laughed at as a relic now stood as a symbol of humanity's hidden strength and wisdom. Captain Miller, the crystalline committee member, said finally, I believe we have severely underestimated your species. Miller smiled one last time. That honored committee member was exactly the point. Now shall we discuss how humanity and the Council can work together to keep the galaxy safe. Above the station, the Thunderchild floated silently in space, its true nature finally revealed. No longer a relic to be mocked, but a guardian to be respected, and a reminder to never judge by appearances alone. The next time someone laughed at a primitive human ship, they would remember the day the Thunderchild roared to life.